What's up, guys? So recently I've been thinking a little bit about how common and easy it is to use devices to track things like our steps, our calories, and even our sleep. And rarely do we ever think about the environment around us, even something as simple as the air we breathe, especially indoors. And I started wondering what's happening to the air around me while I work and I sleep. I wanted to find out, so I built this. An air quality monitor that measures what really matters: temperature, humidity, CO2, VOCs, and particulate matter levels using high accuracy sensors, all clearly displayed on a low power e-ink screen. In this video, I'll show you how I designed it from scratch and what I discovered once I actually started measuring my indoor air. I really wanted this device to cover all the essential metrics. CO2 seems like an obvious one, and you might be wondering what VOCs are and particulate matter and why they're important. VOC stands for volatile organic compound and is released by things like paint, cleaning products, or even furniture, and this is where the term off-gassing comes from. Particulate matter are just tiny particles, usually less than 10 micrometers in diameter, and comes from things like dust or smoke. And high levels of either of these can be pretty bad for your overall health. With that being said, when I started designing this device, I knew I wanted three main things. One, sensors that measure these important metrics accurately. Two, a microcontroller that was powerful but well supported. And three, a display that didn't glow or distract, especially at night. After doing some initial research, I landed on this sensor here, the SCD41 for carbon dioxide. It's widely used and accurate. And then I also found this sensor here, the SEN54, made by the same company, which actually covers the VOCs and the particulate matter all in one package. For the brain of the device, I went with an ESP32. There's tons of community support documentation on this one, so I knew that I wouldn't really have any problems implementing it. And for the display, I went with an e-paper screen, which is low power, looks like paper, and doesn't have a distracting backlight. Once I had my parts, I started like most electronics projects do, on a breadboard. I followed the diagrams and datasheets for all the components and wired everything up to the ESP32. I then wrote a simple firmware script to start pulling sensor data and showing it on the screen. Finally, I went ahead and flashed it to the ESP32. It was really basic at first, just values printed to the screen, but that was enough to know that the ESP32 could read data from the sensors and power the display. Getting this to work was really satisfying and meant that I had a good proof of concept. Obviously, there was no way that all of this was going to fit into any kind of final product, so I moved on to the next step, which was designing a custom PCB. Now, if you're not familiar, PCB stands for printed circuit board, and it integrates all of the electronics into one board. This was definitely the most daunting and challenging part of this project, since I had no prior experience designing any kind of PCB. So I started simple by defining all the different subsystems that my board would need. Of course, at the heart of it is the ESP32. Then we have the two sensor modules, which communicate over I2C. And of course, we have the e-paper display, which requires some specific electronics and uses SPI. Finally, we need some type of USB-C interface so that we can power and flash firmware to the device. With that, I jumped right in, starting by piecing together any reference schematics I could find for each of these subsystems. And using those references, I jumped into a program called KiCad, where I began creating my complete schematic, adding all the core components along with necessary passive components like resistors, capacitors, diodes, and so on. Once I had the completed schematic, I moved on to the PCB design, which defines how the board will look and where all the individual parts go. It took a lot of trial and error, placing components, routing wires, fixing clearance issues, but eventually I had a board that I was pretty confident in and I was ready to get it manufactured. For PCB manufacturing, there's a lot of options, but I decided to go with PCBWay, which really made this part of the process so much easier. And they were kind enough to sponsor this video and help me get my initial PCB prototypes manufactured. I was able to use their plugin for KiCad to easily generate all the manufacturing files and bill of materials, and it even automatically filled out most of the details for me on their website. I had PCBWay handle both the manufacturing and the assembly, which basically means that they sourced all the components I needed and soldered them onto the board for me. So all I really had to do was place my order and wait. I even got emails with updates and a picture of my board once it was made. The whole process from order to receiving the PCBs only took about a week and a half, and considering these were custom made and they come from halfway across the globe, I was pretty impressed, so thanks again PCBWay. Once I finally had the PCBs in hand, it was time for the moment of truth. I plugged it in and of course nothing happened. Honestly, I thought it would be back to the drawing board with this, but after digging into it, I found two problems. The first was I had accidentally flipped the USB D+ and D- lines on the schematic, and the second was that I forgot to wire power to the voltage pins on the display connector. This basically meant that the USB port wouldn't work and neither would the display. So it was time to do some DIY repair. I pulled out the soldering iron, an X-Acto knife, and some spare wire. I started by carefully scraping the surface of the board to expose the copper trace and soldered on the wires where they were needed. This was not easy, and I actually messed up one of the boards trying to do this, but luckily I had extra, and this is what it looked like once I was done. After the fixes, I powered it back up again, and it worked, which was a huge relief. Now I had the system working, but the UI still looked pretty awful, so I cleaned it up. I sectioned off and bolded the most important metrics. There's some symbols and units that I wasn't able to add right away, but I plan to improve that in the future. For now, it's still readable and super easy to glance at. Finally, I wanted to tie it all together with some type of enclosure. It needed to be simple, compact, and hide all the components, but still allow enough air to get through to the sensors. So I got to modeling in SolidWorks, adding in the 3D models of the components so that I could kind of design around them. And it took a little bit of creative design here, but eventually I landed on this as a first iteration, so I went ahead and 3D printed it. And as I was assembling everything, I realized that luck must have been on my side here because everything was fitting as I intended, and that's usually like never the case when I model something and print it for the first time. But now that I had it intact, I plugged it in and finally got the project in its final form. There's definitely room for improvement on the enclosure, but overall I think it's pretty simple and functional, which is exactly what I was going for. Now we get to the interesting part, actually using it. So just as a baseline, here are some of the measurements for clean and healthy air. CO2 should be at around 400 to 500 parts per million. The VOC index should be at or below 100, and the particulate matter levels should be at or below 5. Just to show that the sensors were working initially, I put some rubbing alcohol up to it, which sent the VOC reading super high. And of course, blowing at it also sent the CO2 readings up pretty high. Now that I knew everything was working, I did my first test and left the monitor in my room overnight with most of my windows closed and my air purifier running. By morning, CO2 levels were hitting around 800 parts per million, and the VOC index was also elevated. Neither of these values is crazy high, but there is some research showing that at around 950 parts per million, cognitive performance actually decreases by 15%. So sleeping in that kind of environment probably isn't ideal. As a second test, I placed it on my desk during the day, and I quickly noticed some elevated VOC readings. This desk mat here was my first intuition since it had a rubber backing with the typical rubber smell, and sure enough, putting that rubber up close to the sensor caused the VOC readings to start increasing slightly. While these are all good findings, I was most interested in what practical steps I could take to consistently keep these levels at baseline. By far, the best solution I found is to simply just have some windows open and run an air purifier like the one I have here. Just those two things alone kept everything at healthy levels consistently. And I'm really glad that I have this device handy now because it gives me an easy and accurate way to make sure that my indoor air stays as clean as possible. In summary, this project really got started because I got curious about my indoor air quality, and after seeing some of the data, it definitely helped me make some improvements. Hopefully this got you curious about your air quality as well. Moving forward, there's a few things that I'd like to improve with the device, like adding Bluetooth or Wi-Fi capability to make it an actual smart device, and refining the enclosure design a bit. But if you guys have any suggestions for improvements, I'd really like to hear them in the comments below. Also, everything in this project is completely open source. The PCB, the software, the CAD files, everything you need to make it yourself, you'll find linked below. Thanks once again to PCBWay for sponsoring this project. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I've got more coming soon, so I'll see you guys in the next one.